The following video podcast is a presentation of News Talk 760, WJR.
This is PNC RoundTable.
Hello, this is Rick DeVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC RoundTable. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC RoundTable.
Hi, this is Paul W. Smith. Welcome into the PNC RoundTable with my co-host, Rick DeVore, President of PNC Bank. Well, we continue the tradition, Rick, of having very special guests on this program.
I think so, and topical as well. And so I'm really excited about our guest today, Matt Maroon,
Matt Maroon, the Vice Chairman of the Ambassador Bridge Company. It is a pleasure to have you in the studio here on our PNC Roundtable. Good to see you, Matt.
Thank you both for having me.
You are the next generation. We all knew Dad Matty and lovely Mom Nora. She's been on our morning show program. We've talked about all the different ways she has contributed to a variety of charitable organizations. She has some favorites. What would be her favorite right now? One of her favorites?
Well, her favorite is Forgotten Harvest, bar none. She's very deep into that charity, not only through monetary, but her personal contributions.
And Rick, you were saying just before we started the program about something about Forgotten Harvest and the further donation, not just of money, but of land.
Absolutely. In fact, you remember, Paul, I was on the board of Forgotten Harvest with Nora. Tim Ashley in our corporate banking group has replaced me on that board. But Ore Creek up in Fenton, Forgotten Harvest has gotten into actually growing food as well as distributing others' food, and they get the use of that, I think, for $1 a year or something. And it's been a great hit. So it's really supplemented, and there's never a shortage of need in this region. So it's pretty neat if people ever get a chance to donate their time and go up to Ore Creek, which was, Nora was the mastermind of that. It's pretty neat what's going on up there.
News continues, too, with what the family business is doing. And one of the stories just the other day in the Detroit News, talking about the Michigan Central Depot steadily moving toward rebuilding the image because of the, I think now more than 1,000 new windows that the family has put in.
Right. When we're done, we'll have 1,050 windows in the building. There's probably 500, 600 in right now. We should finish sometime in early November. It's quite exciting. It'll make the building look a lot nicer. And when the building looks a lot nicer and it looks kept up it'll give people a realistic opportunity to imagine a renovated building in the future.
Which is something that people always talk about as the potential. And there have been so many ideas that people have approached the family with, some of them probably pretty funny. You're welcome to share any of those with us without mentioning any names.
And by the way, what's so ironic about this is Matt can look right over your shoulder and see not only the bridge, but the train depot that we're just talking about, which is a beautiful day, obviously.
There's no shortage of ideas.
Right.
They all don't come with money, though.
There's a shortage of money. I understand. A lot of different ideas, and hopefully the right one will come along as part of the whole rebuilding of Detroit, because it is impossible to miss. And it's good that it's no longer thought of as this symbol of urban decay, but it's a symbol of hope now, urban hope.
Absolutely. If we can turn the depot around, what greater symbol would we have for a rebirth of Detroit than that?
When people know about the Maroon family, they think that they know everything by just knowing about the Ambassador Bridge Company. There's so much more to what you folks are doing, and we just learned that most recently with a deal that was worked out as you worked hand in hand with our mayor, Mike Duggan, in a wonderful land swap opportunity that really has benefited the city and hopefully will benefit your company.
Right. I used to think that the Ambassador Bridge happened to be located next to a park, and I never gave much thought to it. And after working with the mayor and understanding what we needed and what the city needed, we came to an agreement where it just made a ton of sense to have a beautiful bridge located next to a magnificent park. And in order to make that happen, we both had to give, and that's what I did, and I'm very proud of it. And that'll be a gorgeous park.
Well, the Ambassador Bridge Company is giving a lot in hopes of getting a little, but that little that you get should go back to what your dad's dream has been and the company's dream has been, to get that second span.
Exactly.
But the reality is, regardless of how any of that works out, as the mayor has told us on the air and elsewhere, the children and the families of Southwest Detroit are going to get a beautiful waterfront park, regardless of what happens from this point on.
That's guaranteed. The beautiful park part is guaranteed. My positive confidence comes close to guaranteeing that there will be a bridge there too.
Well, we're hoping that that's the
I'm
case.
very hopeful.
I mean, what's fair is fair at this point. You've already put up the money, or you are putting up the money, regardless of all of the red tape and all of the hoops that you've had to jump through in the past and all of that. I'd like to say that it appears that this is the new era of the way people look and understand the Ambassador Bridge Company and the Maroon family in particular. It isn't a fight between your family and everybody else. The reality is the mayor understood how important it was to take one of our biggest employers and landowners and try to make things work out, and that's what's happening here. And I think that's important.
It's very important. I don't want an acrimonious relationship with the city that we're in, that we're fully invested in and going to be in for indefinitely.
Generation.
That's right. So we've got to have a good relationship with the city, and this is a very good start.
I don't want to embarrass you, but I'm going to say, Matt, I think it all started when you became old enough to be really involved with the company. And now, as vice chairman of the Ambassador Bridge Company, we're starting to see the results of your new approach. And it's a new approach, and it's working.
Well, it's got to take a new approach, because we couldn't go on with the situation the way it was. We should be a good friend of the city of Detroit, and I'd like to earn the respect of being a good corporate citizen in the city of Detroit, and I can't do that if we're fighting.
And I give you a lot of credit for making this change, if you will. As you know, we're the presenting sponsor of Pancakes and Politics. You came to that group. Some people could say, gee, that would be a tough group to be in front of. I thought you did a great job. You held your own, and you really basically were able to explain, just like you're doing here on the radio, this new, if you will, new chapter, for the city with its relationship with Maroon. And you really think about the train depot. You mentioned it kind of being a metaphor for the rebirth. I think Mayor Duggan has the privilege of being kind of a clean slate, if you will. And so I think it's kind of interesting that, the mayor gets to enjoy kind of a clean slate. You're trying to enjoy kind of a new, let's just wipe the slate clean and move forward. So the fact that we're going down this parallel path, I think, is really exciting. And I think it shows courage, not only in the Maroon family, but, with the mayor as well. And I think
city
it's
council too.
Yeah, it was a 7-2 vote, right?
They had to do their due diligence on the deal, and it took them quite a bit to get comfortable with it.
It's a pleasure to see a city council that gets it, a mayor who gets it, and a business owner who gets it. And we should all be working together. That's the only way we go in the right direction up from here.
But I think all three of those groups, it took some courage, got out of their comfort zone, and I think they really should be commended for that.
I agree. Now, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, the Federal National Park Service still need to approve the deal, at least as of this story, with everything that we've got going on here. The city was awarded the money from both state and federal governments to use the land as a park, so they have to sign off on the transferal, if you will. But anybody who looks at this, everybody who looks at this knows that this really is something that's extra special for the families, again, of Southwest Detroit. They're going to get a beautiful waterfront park. They're not losing anything. They're gaining something very special.
Right. More land and enough money to make that park look as good as any other park there is.
And that's a done deal. That's the mayor has made that very clear. Matt Maroon has made that very clear. You're taking the risk. The only risk right now is on your company.
I got that loud and clear. It's,
You probably got it from
Not contingent upon anything.
You probably got it from Dad. He looked at the deal and goes, wait a minute. Explain this paragraph to me right here.
there was some explaining to do.
We joke about that, but it's not easy. First of all, having a family business is not easy, especially when you get to the next generation or generations. It just isn't. And you usually have a very strong and powerful man or woman who built the business, and they did it a certain way. And now we have the son coming in and saying, well, Dad, what do you think about doing it this way? He apparently has been pretty open-minded with you about making some changes in the way you approach things.
Right. My dad supports me a great deal, and I wouldn't be able to do anything without his support. We get along most of the time, but we have a real relationship, and that means arguing sometimes too.
And I think your mom, Nora, probably gets involved from time to time, maybe as a good referee.
Exactly. She's a wonderful referee, and she doesn't just side with either one of us either.
She listens to the story. She listens to the situation and makes her decision and adds her help based on what's going on. I think it's wonderful. I think that's beautiful the way that is working out.
And
then of course, if I could, then I've got my kids and my wonderful wife. That if things really get crazy, everyone starts voting, not necessarily on the same issue whatsoever.
Lindsay, your wife, Lindsay,
yes,
gets involved and adds her 2 cents.
Well, it is a family business.
That's true,
Paul W.
Yeah, it's a family business.
That's right.
And speaking of your mother, I think it's worth circling back to that point that, she just doesn't show up and cut a ribbon, and say, see you later. I mean, she's an active board member. Not just on issues that have to do with your family, but in terms of Forgotten Harvest, on the issues that are critical to running that not-for-profit. Not just, hey, let me know when we have the party kind of thing. And I think, she probably doesn't want this kind of focus on her, but I think that's worth pointing out. Paul, you and I talk about over and over, it's one thing to write a check, it's another thing to write a check and be involved. But her involvement it goes beyond just what she's doing with
especially for Forgotten Harvest.
Yeah.
But I've seen it too with our Detroit Police Athletic League in the past, with the family sponsoring and helping out, and in countless other. I started to tell Matt, I was in one of the stores there at the crossing, and it seems to me there was this wonderful little tree that had little ornaments on it that represented all the different charities that were special to her and that the business has contributed to, and it was a lot.
Right. Mm-hmm. She's very passionate. Our family is right now due to her position. She has the ability to invest the time and sometimes the family's money into those things, and she's doing a great job of it.
She does a great job representing the family and the company, and you were doing a great job representing the family and the company. And your dad was a little shyer about publicity. He did come on my show a couple of years ago in the height and heat of everything that was going on. So I appreciate that he came on, but he didn't go a lot of places, which, by the way, led people to – did you hear? Maybe you remember the story. When I had Mr. Maroon, Matty Maroon, on, people were emailing or calling or saying, well, I understand that the reason Paul W. had him on is that Mr. Maroon gave Paul W. personally $50,000 to come on his show. And I said, wait a second. That is a disgusting rumor. What do you think I am? I'm not stupid. He could afford a lot more money than $50,000. So he did. He wasn't around a lot of places because he wasn't comfortable doing that.
Right. He's not comfortable. He's with the media. He's a very private guy, and my dad's 88 years old, and he was able to do his job and stick to his knitting and grow a company and a business for a really long time without having to be engaged in the media.
Right.
So
I'm glad that his son is either more comfortable and or understands that it's better to be out in the light of day and be straightforward with people than having people think and make up things and have rumors and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
I think that's excellent with what you're doing. We're spending some time with Matthew Maroon. Matt Maroon, Vice Chairman of the Ambassador Bridge Company, the Detroit International Bridge Company. How many companies?
Well, the bridge happens to be two different companies. Half of one company, which is the U.S. half, and another company, which is the Canadian half, and that's just the legal structure that it was since the beginning.
I see.
And then our family's involved in the transportation business, and every kind of niche of transportation sometimes requires a little.
I have to admit this, and I'm never ashamed of admitting things I don't know, but I didn't know that you owned from what you were saying before we started, owning a trucking company, having a trucking company?
Yes.
More than one.
What's that?
More than one.
I didn't realize that.
So when you look at trucking, Paul W., there's a lot of different elements to it. Some trucking companies only deal with flatbed work, right? Some trucking companies haul agricultural products. Some companies haul temperature-controlled products where they've got a reefer unit on the trailer and they're controlling the temperature, whether they're hauling food or ice cream or who knows what. And other companies are hauling dry van goods. So there's a whole myriad of niches within the transportation industry. And we play in some of those niches, but certainly not them all. And they all require a great deal of concentration and expertise.
With the, and if this is correct, or if it's incorrect, tell me, but one of the stories in the newspaper recently listed that you own about 550 acres of Detroit properties. I don't know if you keep track based on the acres or the buildings or the whatever, but is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, I think it is with regards to land. Just the land around the bridge is probably close to 25% of that number.
I see.
Just on the U.S. side, with the customs plazas and the toll plazas and the queuing and the entry ramps and exit ramps and so on. And yeah, we're interested in the redevelopment of the city and how we can play in that and also hopefully profit from it too.
Of course.
So,
profit on this program and elsewhere around me, and I'm sure around Rick, profit is not a bad word.
No.
It's a word we understand and promote for our businesses, or we won't have businesses and we won't have jobs. Let's put that to rest right away.
Exactly.
Profit is what we expect you to get, just like this radio station expects to, needs to, and just like this bank needs to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I would love to see if there's a chance down the road of you getting more involved. I guess the question is, are we likely to see one of your companies or the family just overall get involved in some of the redevelopment that is happening in the city of Detroit? Because it seems like the opportunity is great right now for residential properties.
Well, residential isn't our expertise.
Is not your expertise.
So you won't see us. It's very unlikely that you'll see us get involved
Building
in
an apartment building.
That's not it. But in the industrial sector, we are very active. And in fact, on the east side of the city right now, and what the city of Detroit is called the I-94 Industrial Park, we're about halfway done with a 500,000 square foot industrial building that will handle automotive logistics for one of the large assembly plants in the city.
Excellent.
So we're right in the middle of that construction right now. It's over a $30 million development, and it'll have about 250 people working inside that building.
And I hope you make money off that building.
But again, it's logistics.
Geez, I do too.
It's logistics. It's what you do. I mean,
Right.
that's really in the sweet spot of what you do versus getting off the fairway and saying, hey, we're going to do a hotel development with some high-end retail.
Well, that's good, though, to
Absolutely.
explain, though, because guys like me who I've never owned a company per se, I've never done any of these sorts of things, you wonder how people who have the means, and in this case the property, you wonder how you decide what you're going to do with all that.
Right, and that's on about 40 acres. So you need about 40 acres for a 500,000 square foot building, enough room around it for the trucks to be able to get in and out of the docks and so on. Now, no one in that building will be wearing a tie, but that's the type of building it is. It's what Detroit grew up on. It's a blue-collar.
It's not an office complex like we see being built in some of the areas, or buildings that have been rehabbed beautifully. And thank God for Dan Gilbert and his various companies for doing what they're doing. This is at the other end of the spectrum.
The other end of the spectrum.
Very important end of the spectrum.
Yep, we're probably about 7-8 miles from downtown, and but we're still in the city, and we're in a part of the city that is maybe one of the most depressed parts of the city, the easterly portion of Detroit, and hopefully we can get something rolling there.
And that really gets at two big issues, right? It gets at the issue of doing something in probably one of the most blighted areas of the city, and jobs. And there's nothing wrong, we've said this before, with blue-collar jobs, right?
No.
And that's what you're providing in Southwest Detroit. And, I've been asked privately about, a second span there. And to me, I think sometimes it takes, like somebody like me who left the region, came back home, but that right over there is our largest trading partner. Right across that river.
The largest.
And the more we can do with Canada, the better off we are. Sometimes we take them for granted. It kind of drives me crazy.
Canada and U.S., the largest bilateral trading relationship in the world, not the country, in the world, with two-way trade in goods and services of nearly $870 billion in 2014. Almost $2.4 billion of goods and services cross the border every day. Now, we're going to get this. It frustrates the heck out of me that somebody who runs a successful business and offers to add to that successful business, including all the people that they're employing, all the money that they'll put out themselves privately, would be fought by a government that says, no, we've never done that, but we're going to do it, and we promise it's not going to cost you any money. And the latest move they did was, I think, brilliant in saying they were going to name that bridge after Gordie Howe, which makes everyone feel, oh, my God, that's fabulous. Has there been one move yet to really build that bridge? I mean, we're excited it's the Gordie Howe Bridge. I love that because I love Gordie Howe.
I do, too. That was a great move.
It was a brilliant move.
It was a great move.
It was a brilliant move
to
take everyone's
thing,
to take the minds off everybody about the reality is that there's still a bridge that needs to be built. We know we need another bridge. Right. So, regardless of what they do or don't do, you're still planning on building another span.
Well, Paul W., very simply, the existing Ambassador Bridge is a fine bridge, but it's over 80 years old. So our calculus in building a new bridge is we need to build a new bridge alongside it so that we can close the old bridge down and fully repair it. It's at that time of life where that needs to happen. So
would it become the standby bridge then if you built a new one?
Initially, it would be a standby bridge, and hopefully, if that trading relationship that you just mentioned was to expand in the future, we might be able to use it too.
Run them both.
That's right.
How close is the reality of the second span built by your company?
Well, it's considerably close. I can't predict when, because I'm not fully in control. There's still too many different governmental approvals that I need in order to be able to get started. But
on both sides of the river.
On both sides of the river. But we're much closer today than where we've been. And this agreement that we made with the city definitely moved us very far down the field. We're not in the end zone yet. There's a few things to do. But all the important pieces are in place. We now have all the land that we need. We're
on both sides.
On both sides. We've completed the environmental process on both sides. There are still some things. We still require a permit from the Coast Guard where they can bless the bridge and make sure that it doesn't interfere with freighter traffic. We still require so I don't know exactly what the name for it is in Canada, but we still need their cabinet ministry to give it their final say.
Do they have a equivalent of our Army Corps of Engineers? I take it, whatever they.
I think we've passed the.
This would be more like the city council or whatever group it might be.
That's right.
For them.
The technical, the meritorious items are all taken care of. Now we're to the last bits of the politics in Canada, but we're very close, and no one truly disputes that the existing bridge is 80 years old and it does need to be replaced and then rehabilitated, like much of the infrastructure in the United States does.
Oh, absolutely.
We're at that point with far smaller bridges and tunnels and highways and soon our water pipes and sewer pipes, and we got a big infrastructure fix that's coming up.
You know,
Absolutely.
It's funny when I talk about this issue at our headquarters, which is Pittsburgh. You know, it's hard for them to relate because you could pretty much take a 5-iron and hit one bridge after another, right? They had all that excess steel and they had to build them and paint them gold just like the Steelers. But there are a lot of bridges in Pittsburgh, and it's like, I'm not exagerating. I mean, there's probably one every quarter mile for a span there.
There's
one
lot.
after another.
Really?
Right.
You can never have too many bridges.
And you're like, well, there's such a thing as another foreign country involved, and it's a little more complicated than just saying it's so and it'll become so, right? But it is kind of amusing when I talk about this issue at headquarters. They're like, what? Just build another bridge?
Well, we'll have to invite them down and give them a tour someday.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Anything else going on with the Ambassador Bridge Company that we need to know about, Matt, or with the family, or anything? Because we don't get a chance to talk very often.
Well, the most important thing is our company and the city completing the terms of the agreement that we just made. In early September, we'll transfer the first part of the money, which is $3 million, to the city so that they can get started on the park. And we're very hopeful that some of that work can begin yet this year, so there's more chances of enjoying some of those benefits to the residents next year. With that, we'll also transfer 5 acres of the additional waterfront property that we've agreed to in the deal. So they'll get the title to that property yet this year. In fact, in September, and I'm expecting, hopefully, that we get through the state park approval process as quickly as possible, so that we might be able to enjoy the 2.8 acres that the city is transferring to us.
And now that deal moves forward with everyone on board, as the bridge company, really the Maroon family, have agreed to give the city those 4.8 acres of the land next to Riverside Park for expansion, and up to $5 million to improve the park. That is currently, as was reported in the paper, rather plain. $3 million coming with the. When did you say you hope to transfer the $3 million?
The $3 million is up front, and then as soon as the state Department of Natural Resources decides that the 5 acres or 4.8 acres that we're giving is more than they're giving up in the 2.8 acres, the city will get another $2 million.
And the upgrades that are planned with this money include a baseball diamond, soccer field, picnic and fishing areas, and a riverside promenade.
It's going to be beautiful.
It's pretty spectacular. It is truly a win-win-win situation. And the more of those we get, the better we'll be as we continue to move in the right direction for the city of Detroit and the surrounding area and neighborhoods.
Exactly. You know, the Riverfront Conservancy's vision was to have a beautiful river walk from the Belle Isle Bridge to the Ambassador Bridge.
Absolutely.
And we're not quite there yet, but this is a very big step towards that.
Oh, yeah, that's really a good point. You're correct on that. You know, and from my chair, like I said before, anything that we can do to promote this region, our trade with Canada, and like we were talking about, a logistics hub. I mean, if you think of the logistics of coming across the bridge, but then even the new park that you're doing on the east side. I mean, really, we need to embrace the fact that we need to move things around, whether they're containers, whether they're on trucks coming off ships and then going across to Canada. I mean, anything we can do means jobs for this region. And I think that's the bottom line that I think some people sometimes miss. We're talking about jobs, good paying jobs. I mean, in fact, if you could just take a moment, we were talking about, and I forget the exact numbers that you were quoting of some of these jobs that you're looking for in the logistics business, but these are good paying jobs, Paul.
Mm-hmm. So if right now we're looking for truck drivers, right? So our one of our trucking companies, Central Transport, is hiring. We're hiring in Southwest Detroit. We're located on Jefferson Avenue inside the city limits, and our starting wage for city drivers, that's drivers that are home every night. They work depending on schedule, sometime between 7 in the morning and 7 at night, in those parameters, and they get paid over $20 an hour. It's a good paying job, and if you work hard and you're a conscientious driver, you can make a great living for your family.
And the key here, too, that Matt just mentioned is they're home every night,
Right.
which not a lot of truckers can say.
Right.
No, it's a great job.
Yeah, those are good jobs. And,
Another great job tied into the Maroon family and the Ambassador Bridge Company, the International Bridge Company, and all the other companies, these trucking companies that you have. We thank you for coming on board, being with us here in our PNC Roundtable, and we always give the last word to Rick DeVore, the president of PNC Bank.
Well, Paul, I mean, I'm excited about what I'm saying is the second renaissance of Detroit, right? I was fortunate to come back 5 years ago and come back to the region, and I just think this is the new world order. This is the kind of cooperation, private, public in the city with the new mayor. I mean, I really see this as the new Detroit, no pun intended, and I'm really just happy that people like Matt and the family, and not just Matt, but the entire family, the Maroon family, are stepping up and trying to make a difference and, like you said earlier, still make a profit, right?
That's right.
And this is not philanthropy, but, some parts of it are. But, quite frankly, it is, like you said,
when
Paul,
companies do well and make a profit, they're very philanthropical.
they're much more apt to
Exactly.
be that way, right? It's kind of funny how it works that way.
When
isn't
you
it?
make money, you have a better opportunity of donating
Absolutely.
money. When you're not making money, it's pretty hard to donate.
Absolutely. So, I'm excited about this. And anything, like I said earlier, we can do for enhancing trade with Canada, I'm all for.
And I'm thrilled that nobody's spending a great deal of time looking backwards, pointing fingers behind them, and blaming. Everybody involved right now seems to grasp and understand that getting along and working together is not just the best way, it's the only way. And that's what's happening here, and I salute you as a part of that, Matt.
Thank you. There's just so much in the past, whether it's the city of Detroit, its former finances, or whether it's our company and some of the issues and decisions and things that were made in the past, that we can argue about the past forever. It's not going to get us anywhere. We all need to move forward.
Yeah, it's either...
Never steer the boat with the wake.
No.
Doesn't happen.
That's right.
Using the car analogy, drive the car, looking out the windshield, not the rearview mirror, or the truck in your case. But and I agree with you. I think we just need to move forward.
And I think we've run out of analogies and time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Matt, thanks for being with us. Matt Maroon, Vice Chairman of the Ambassador Bridge Company, our co-host and sponsor, Rick DeVore, the President of PNC Bank. I'll be talking to you in the mornings, Monday through Friday, 5:30 till 9. Regards, Paul W. Smith.